So, imagine a scenario that I think a lot of us really don't have to try too hard to imagine because we've lived it.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there.
Right. You have spent, say, 4 or maybe 5 months planning something just massive for your spouse. And I don't mean, you picked up a gift card at the grocery store checkout line. I mean, you are deep in the logistics,
You're invested.
heavily invested.
Hmm.
You've drained a savings account to book that once-in-a-lifetime trip to the Amalfi Coast. Or maybe you've spent every single weekend for 6 months secretly renovating the basement because your partner mentioned literally once, like 3 years ago,
Yeah.
that they wish they had a dedicated studio space. You have put in what we might call maximum effort.
Yeah. The stakes are incredibly high in this kind of scenario. You aren't just spending money here. You are spending emotional capital. You're leveraging your time, your energy, and frankly, your anticipation.
Exactly. The anticipation is the killer. So the moment arrives, you reveal the surprise, your heart is basically pounding in your throat, and their reaction is, well, it's warm. It's nice. They smile, they give you a really solid hug, and they say, oh, wow, thank you so much, honey. This is great.
And that is the exact moment the stomach drops.
Right. You feel sick, you feel hollow. But here is the massive problem with this situation. On paper, they did everything right.
You did.
They smiled, they said thank you, they hugged you. If you complain in that moment, you look like an absolute sociopath. You look like a monster who demands a ticker tape parade for doing something nice, but you still feel hollow. Why is that?
Well, because that hug,
Hmm.
that specific thank you, that is the exact same reaction they gave your sister last week for bringing over a pan of lasagna. It's the same reaction they gave the neighbor for holding the elevator doors open.
And that right there is exactly why we are here today. We are doing a deep dive into a really uncomfortable but honestly fascinating set of psychological and sociological research that validates that exact hollow feeling. We're going to explore a concept called the status-effort mismatch.
It is a heavy topic, but man, it is so crucial for anyone in a long-term relationship. We've pulled together some incredible sources today, ranging from social exchange theory to evolutionary biology, really just to explain why being nice is actually completely insufficient in a marriage.
Yeah.
We're going to look at what's called the hierarchy of relational gratitude and why treating your spouse like your neighbor is actually a subtle form of relationship sabotage.
And strictly based on the source materials we have, we are going to lay out a framework, like a literal, actionable script on how to fix this without sounding like an entitled jerk. Because if you just walk up to your partner and say, hey, I bought you a trip, why aren't you more excited? You have already lost the argument.
Oh, completely. You have to understand the architecture of the relationship before you can fix the house. Our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack why receiving what we call kinship-level gratitude for spousal-level effort triggers a state of what sociologists call distributive injustice.
Distributive injustice. Okay, that sounds like something straight out of a law textbook or, I don't know, a political manifesto. Break that down for us before we get any deeper into the weeds.
Sure, yeah. It actually sounds super academic, but it's a foundational concept from equity theory. Basically, human beings have this internal alarm bell that rings when the return on an investment doesn't match the status of the relationship.
Okay, so a mismatch in the math.
Exactly. If I invest at a level 10 and you return that energy at a level 2, my brain automatically registers that as an injustice. It is not just simple disappointment. It is a literal violation of the social contract we have.
So when the husband gets the lasagna hug for the Amalfi Coast trip, his brain is experiencing a breach of contract.
Emotionally speaking, yes. It leads to a profound sense of relational devaluation. But to really understand why this happens, we have to look at how humans categorize relationships. Our sources break this down into 3 distinct tiers of human connection. And this is where most people completely mess up, because they don't realize these tiers operate on entirely different currencies.
All right, let's lay them out. Because I think most of us just walk around assuming gratitude is gratitude. Like if someone says thank you, that's the end of the transaction, right?
And that is the fundamental mistake. So the first tier is the linear tier. Think of this as the civilization tier. This is your neighbors, your acquaintances, the mailman, maybe a casual coworker.
People you wave to, but you don't really know their kids' names or anything.
Right. This tier is regulated by what sociologists call equivalence reciprocity. It is highly transactional, but in a very polite, functional way. So let's say your neighbor, let's call him Bob, shovels your snowy walkway. You now owe Bob a debt.
Okay, so I owe Bob.
but the debt is strictly limited. You wave, you say, thanks, Bob.
Hmm.
Or maybe you just make sure to shovel his walk the next time it snows. The debt is settled, it's low stakes. The goal here is equilibrium. We just want to be even.
Right, because if Bob shovels my walk and I fall to my knees weeping, kissing his boots, or I don't know, I offer him one of my kidneys,
That's alarming.
it's super weird.
It's socially aggressive, honestly. But on the flip side, if you just stared at him and nodded without speaking, that's rude. So a verbal thank you is the absolute perfect currency for the linear tier. It clears the books, it maintains the social lubricant without deepening the bond unnecessarily.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense as the baseline. Move us up to the next tier.
Next up is the vertical tier. This is kinship. We're talking parents, children, siblings. This tier is regulated by nurturant reciprocity. And this is really important for you to grasp. The dynamic here is inherently not equal.
Because parents always give more. Is that the idea?
By definition, yes. A parent provides life, shelter, food, education, physical safety. The investment is massive and it is continuous. And what does the child actually give back?
Finger painting, a
Yeah,
macaroni necklace, a sticky hug. Maybe they clean their room once a month if you threaten to take away their iPad.
exactly. And yet, as a parent, when you get that macaroni necklace, how does it actually feel?
It feels great. You put it right on the fridge, you cherish it. You might even tear up a little bit if it's Mother's Day.
Why, though? The economic value of that necklace is zero. You spent $200,000 raising this kid, and you got a dyed noodle on a piece of yarn.
Hmm.
But it feels deeply satisfying because it represents the platonic maximum. That child is giving you the absolute ceiling of what they are capable of offering at their age. They're fulfilling their role perfectly.
So in the vertical tier, we basically grade on a curve. We accept affection as payment for survival because that is just the nature of a blood bond.
Correct. It is a secure bond. You don't divorce your 6-year-old because they didn't pay rent. You don't stop being siblings just because your brother forgot your birthday one year. The bond survives the deficit.
Okay, so we have linear, which is neighbors and equivalents, and we have vertical, which is kinship and nurturance. That brings us to the third one, the one that causes all the trouble we're talking about today.
The exclusive tier.
Mm.
The spousal tier. This is the only tier in the entire human experience that is designed to be fully exclusive. It is regulated by communal responsiveness.
Now, how does this actually differ from the kinship tier? Because you hear a lot of people say, my husband is my family.
He's your family, but he is not your brother.
Yeah.
In the kinship tier, the bond is blood. It is static. In the exclusive tier, the bond is choice. It's highly dynamic. And unlike the neighbor, where a simple thanks settles the debt, and unlike the child, where a hug is the absolute maximum they can give, the spouse is in a totally unique position. They're the only person on earth who acts as a partner, a lover, and a co-architect of your entire life.
And this is where that status effort mismatch finally comes in. This is that brother level ceiling the sources talk about.
Exactly. Let's go right back to your opening scenario. The husband plans the trip of a lifetime. That is spousal level effort. It is an act of extreme communal investment. He is operating at the absolute peak of the exclusive tier. He has done something he would never, ever do for Bob the neighbor, and honestly, he probably would even do it for his sister.
It's a specific, massive effort designed for exactly one person. It's tailored.
Correct. But when the wife responds to that reveal with a warm hug and a really nice thank you card, she is responding with the currency of the vertical tier. She is giving him kinship gratitude.
She's essentially treating him like a brother.
Or a father. She's using a non-exclusive currency. She could easily give that exact same hug to her dad. She could write that exact same thank you note to her brother. So by offering gratitude that completely lacks exclusivity, she is signaling that the husband's extraordinary effort is being processed through a standard, everyday filter.
That is the relational devaluation right there. It's not that he is ungrateful for the thanks itself. It's that the actual category of thanks is completely wrong for the situation.
Yes. To the husband, it genuinely feels like a demotion. The internal logic, whether it's conscious or subconscious, goes like this. I gave you my most, and in return, I received your standard. If the response is something a brother could realistically receive, the unique element of the marriage is missing.
Wow. It's like he is standing there shouting, I am your lover, and she is responding, thanks, relative.
And that is exactly why it hurts so much. It's not that he needs a parade or a marching band. It's that he desperately needs to feel distinguished from the other tiers in her life. When a partner refuses to move beyond the gratitude they would show a family member, they're essentially refusing to participate in the exclusivity that defines a marriage in the first place.
See, this is a massive reframing of the issue. Usually, if someone complains about this to their friends, they get told, you should just be happy she said thank you. Stop being so transactional. But you are saying the transaction is the entire point.
Because relationships are exchanges. That isn't a cynical take, that is just basic sociology. Our sources point very specifically to social exchange theory here. This was developed by Emerson and Blau. It sounds a bit cold, I know, but it creates a really vital framework for understanding human interaction as a constant calculation of cost versus reward.
Walk us through that calculation in this specific context, because I think people hear cost versus reward and they immediately think of money. But it's so much more than that, isn't it? Oh, absolutely. We are all constantly, subconsciously evaluating cost and reward in every interaction. In a marriage, the goal is to maximize mutual benefit. So, in our Amalfi Coast scenario, the cost for the husband was exceptionally high. The financial planning, the actual money, the emotional energy of keeping the secret, the risk of the surprise falling flat.
Very high cost, maximum effort.
Now, he looks at the reward he got, a generic, albeit warm thank you. In his mind, that is a low reward. Not because it's mean, it's actually quite polite, but because it's terribly common. It is low value specifically because it is high supply. Anyone can say thank you. So instantly, the relationship enters a deficit.
And if that happens once, maybe it's just a glitch, people get tired.
Right.
But if it happens over and over again?
Relational burnout. You simply start making the effort because the return on investment creates a perpetual deficit. You stop planning the surprise trips. You stop renovating the rooms on the weekends. You drift right back down into the linear tier. You become roommates who just split the bills. There is another layer to this in the research from psychologist Sarah Algo that the sources brought up. She talks about the find, remind, and bind theory, which, first of all, I just love that phrasing. But how does her research apply to this mismatch?
It is a phenomenal framework for this. Algo distinguishes very clearly between low-quality gratitude and high-quality gratitude.
Okay, what is the practical difference between the two?
Low-quality gratitude acknowledges the act. Thanks for the trip. Thanks for doing the dishes. Thanks for picking up the dry cleaning. It's purely transactional. It focuses entirely on the benefit that was received.
It's polite. It's exactly what Bob the neighbor gets when he shovels the snow.
Exactly. It doesn't actually bind the pair together. High-quality gratitude, on the other hand, acknowledges the person. I love how incredibly thoughtful you are to plan this for us. I see how hard you worked on this basement because you genuinely care about my happiness. It focuses on the benefactor, not just the benefit.
But our source material actually goes even further than Algo's baseline here. It suggests that even verbal, high-quality gratitude acknowledging the person might still not be enough when we're talking about the exclusive tier.
Right, and this is where it gets really challenging. Because even saying, you are so thoughtful is something I can say to my mother. If my mom knits me a beautiful sweater for Christmas, I look at her and say, Mom, you are so thoughtful. You really saw my need for warmth and you spend so much time on this. It binds us as mother and child. But the source argues that to truly bind in a spousal relationship, you have to overcome what they call relational inertia.
Relational inertia, is that kind of like getting stuck on autopilot in the marriage?
That's a great way to put it. It's the human tendency to take secure bonds entirely for granted. There is a massive distinction here between a covenant of blood and a covenant of choice. Your relationship with your siblings is a covenant of blood. It is inherently secure. You can be annoying, you can be boring, you can be emotionally distant for 6 months, and they will still be your sibling. You can take it for granted without destroying it.
But marriage is a covenant of choice.
Every single day you have to wake up and choose each other. If you stop choosing, the covenant eventually dissolves. Relational inertia happens when you start treating a covenant of choice with the extreme complacency of a covenant of blood.
That is the ultimate danger zone. You are assuming the permanent security of a sibling while totally neglecting the active maintenance required for a lover.
Precisely. So, we've firmly established that the linear and vertical currencies just aren't enough for the exclusive tier. We need a currency that is totally unique to the marriage, a currency that creates an undeniable distinction. And this brings us to the most controversial, yet honestly perhaps the most obvious part of the entire source material.
The sexual apex.
Or, as sociologists sometimes call it, the exclusivity principle.
Now, I can practically hear some of you listening right now tensing up. You're thinking, wait a minute, are you saying if I buy my wife a trip, I am buying sex? Because framed that way, that sounds...
It sounds gross.
It sounds like prostitution.
It absolutely sounds gross if you view it purely as a physical payment.
Yeah.
But the sociological argument here is about language, not payment. The core argument is that to genuinely match a maximum spousal effort, the gratitude return must be thoroughly inappropriate for any other human being on the planet.
Okay, we need to unpack that phrase. Thoroughly inappropriate for any other human being.
Look at the broad spectrum of human behavior and how we show appreciation. Verbal thanks. That's public domain. Gifts. That's the kinship domain. Acts of service. I can go help my neighbor fix his broken fence. Hugs. I hug my grandmother every time I see her. These are all valid currencies, but they circulate in the open market.
But there is exactly one thing you cannot give to anyone else without completely destroying the marriage.
Sexual intimacy. In a monogamous framework, it is the only currency that is legally, morally, and socially reserved strictly for the spouse. It's the premium package of human connection.
I really like that analogy. The standard package is kindness, friendship, partnership, shared chores. Everyone in your close circle gets some version of that. But the premium package is the physical intimacy.
And the source argues that when a spouse provides premium effort, that massive grand gesture we talked about, and receives the standard package of gratitude in return, they feel profoundly shortchanged. Not financially shortchanged, but emotionally. They are receiving a response that literally anyone else could receive.
So it's really about the validation of status. It's about confirmation that the unique boundaries of the marriage are still intact and functioning.
It is the ultimate validator of the bond. It signals to the partner, you are in a category of one. It's not about the physical act of friction, it's about the symbolic act of exclusion. It says, I do this with you, and only you. Therefore, your effort is recognized as something only you would do.
But it's not just sociology we're talking about here, is it? It's literally biology. The sources brought up the chemical side of this equation, which is fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. We cannot ignore the biology. We have to talk about oxytocin. We all know it as the bonding chemical. You get a little hit of it when you hug your kids or pet your dog. But the biology of sexual intimacy releases oxytocin at a flood level that is biologically designed specifically for pair bonding. It is a completely different dosage, so to speak.
And the sources mention the afterglow effect. That was a really compelling study.
Yes, this is based on Meltzer's research from 2017. They tracked couples over time and found that sexual reciprocity creates a literal linguistic shortcut for gratitude. That biological and psychological afterglow actually lasts for approximately 48 hours.
2 full days.
2 full days, where relationship satisfaction remains elevated for both partners. It maintains the bond significantly longer than a verbal thank you, which, let's be honest, fades from the brain in a matter of minutes. Physical intimacy communicates, we are one, in a way words simply cannot sustain.
So combining the sociology and the biology, it really is the only currency that truly matches the exclusivity of the spouse's greatest efforts.
It is the biological and sociological seal on the contract of marriage.
Okay, so we understand the theory now. We understand exactly why the brother level thanks hurts so much. But knowing this intellectually and actually saying this out loud to your partner are two incredibly different things.
Hugely different. Dangerously different.
Right, because if I just walk up to my partner in the kitchen and say, hey, I planned that trip, so strictly speaking, based on social exchange theory and the 2017 Meltzer study, you owe me the premium package, I'm going to be sleeping on the couch.
Immediately on the couch.
Yeah.
Probably for a week. Do not do that. That is the quickest possible way to kill the mood, kill the connection, and start a massive fight.
So how do we actually have this conversation?
Right.
Because this is highly sensitive. You are asking for intimacy, which makes you vulnerable to rejection, and you're basically criticizing their level of gratitude, which immediately makes them defensive. It is a total minefield.
It is a minefield, but the source provides a really detailed, actionable framework for navigating it. And we're going to walk through it step by step. The entire goal here is moving the dynamic from accusation, meaning you are ungrateful, to definition, meaning we need a unique language for us.
Okay, let's go through the steps. Step 1.
Step 1 is the exclusivity opening, and this is critical. You have to start by validating the kinship tier first.
Why do we start there? Why not just get to the point?
Because it immediately disarms their defense mechanisms. If you start with a complaint about what they aren't doing, they just hear, you're not doing enough, and they go into fight or flight. If you start by acknowledging what they do give and how it fits into the broader picture, you show that you aren't just keeping a petty score. You show that you are sane. You show that you aren't trying to invalidate their love. You are just trying to categorize it accurately.
Okay, so here is the specific script provided by the source. Listen to the tone here. You sit them down and say, I've been thinking about how different people show gratitude. When the kids hug me, it's great because that's their max. When a neighbor says thanks, it fits. It feels right for that level.
See what you did there? You establish that you completely understand context. You aren't an insatiable monster demanding sex for everything. You appreciate the hug from the kid. You appreciate the nod from the neighbor. You are validating the entire hierarchy of relational gratitude. You're basically saying, I see the system, and the system works perfectly for them.
And then comes the pivot. Step 2. Defining the brother level ceiling. This is where you actually contrast the tiers to make your point.
And this is the delicate part. You have to explain the feeling of demotion without blaming them for it. You have to talk purely about your internal emotional experience.
The script suggests saying something like this. Because you are the most important person in my world, I crave a thank you that belongs only to us. When I do something big, that husband-level effort, and I get a hug, which is family-level gratitude, I feel demoted from your lover to just another relative.
That word demoted is incredibly powerful. It frames the entire issue as a desire for distinction, not a demand for sex. You are saying, I want to be seen as your husband, not your brother.
It's an identity issue. It's not just a libido issue. You are asking to be recognized in your specific earned role.
Exactly. You are asking for your badge of office. You are essentially saying, I am wearing the uniform of a husband, but you are saluting me like a civilian.
So you've set the stage. You've validated the other tiers, and you've explained the feeling of demotion. Now we hit step 3. You have to introduce the solution, the physical currency explanation.
And you have to do this very carefully without making it sound like a trade. You're describing the meaning of the physical act, not the act itself.
The script goes, for me, the highest form of gratitude is the intimacy only we share. It's the only way you can say thank you that no one else is allowed to say. Without it, the specialness of the act feels unacknowledged.
No one else is allowed to say. That is the key phrase in the whole framework. You are highlighting the exclusivity. You are gently reminding them that they hold a key to a door that is legally and morally locked to the rest of the world. You aren't saying, I want sex. You're saying, I want the thing that only you can give me.
And then we reach step 4, the collaborative ask. You do not end this speech with a demand. You end with a question.
Right. You invite perspective taking. You ask, does it make sense why receiving sibling-style thanks makes me feel like the husband part of me is taken for granted?
That is a remarkably hard question to just say no to. It forces empathy. It takes the problem and moves it to the middle of the table so you can both look at it together, rather than standing on opposite sides of the room throwing rocks at each other.
It completely changes the dynamic from you versus me to us versus the dynamic.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. Even with a genuinely perfect script, people get defensive. This is an inherently sensitive topic. You're poking at their gratitude, their intimacy, their effort. The source material actually outlines some very specific pushback scenarios. We can call this the deep dive scenario segment. I want to role play these with you to show how this actually sounds in practice. I'll play the defensive partner, and you play the enlightened spouse using the framework to pivot.
I love this. I'm ready. Let's do it. Give me your best shot.
Okay, scenario A, the love languages defense. This is a classic. I've heard your whole nice speech and I cross my arms and say, look, I told you I loved the trip and I've been extra nice all week. I made your favorite dinner. I did all the laundry. I let you sleep in on Saturday. That's my love language. Isn't that enough? Why isn't my way of showing love good enough for you?
This is such a common one. It's really tricky because they are genuinely trying. They aren't ignoring you, but they are falsely equating nice with exclusive.
So how do you handle that pushback without sounding ungrateful for the dinner and the laundry?
I would pivot away from transactional arguments like this. Being extra nice is wonderful, and I would be thrilled if a sister or a good friend did that for me. I truly appreciate the dinner. But you are the only person on earth who can love me with your body. When that part is missing, it feels like I'm getting the standard package. I am craving the part of you that is reserved only for me.
Ooh. That is good. You didn't dismiss the laundry at all. You just categorized it.
Right. I specifically redirected the conversation from appreciation, which anyone can give, to prioritization, which implies exclusivity. I'm not saying your love language is bad. I'm saying it's not unique to our marriage. I'm saying, I love the dinner, but the dinner doesn't tell me I'm your husband. It tells me I'm someone you care for. There is a massive difference.
Okay, let's try scenario B. This is the big one. The transaction accusation. This is where the really bad fights usually start. I hear your speech and I say, wow, so just because you bought a trip, I owe you sex. That feels gross. It feels transactional. Like I'm paying for a gift with my body. Is that what I am to you?
This is the absolute danger zone. Most people get super defensive right here and start talking about how expensive the trip was. They say, well, I spent 5 grand. Do not talk about the cost. You have to pivot to connection.
Okay, give me the specific script for managing this feels transactional.
I would look at them and say, it is not a transaction. It is a connection. If I plan a trip, it's because I desperately want to be close to you. When the thank you stays purely platonic, it feels like the door to that closeness was left locked. I'm not asking for payment. I'm asking for the specific intimacy that confirms we are in a romantic bond no one else has access to.
Connection over cost. That is the mantra.
Exactly. You have to immediately break the link in their mind between the dollar sign and the bedroom. It's about the emotional door being open or locked. You have to constantly reframe it. I'm not buying your body. I am trying to access our bond.
Okay, last one. Scenario C. The I do so much defense. I sigh heavily and say, you want more from me. Do you have any idea how much I already do? I pack the lunches. I drive the carpool. I manage the entire house. I work full time. I am exhausted. I simply don't have the energy for a grand gesture physical response.
This is incredibly valid. And if you dismiss their exhaustion, you lose the argument and probably the marriage. You have to validate the reality of their fatigue. But you also have to point out that they are focusing entirely on the maintenance tier of life.
So how do you handle it gracefully?
You acknowledge the maintenance, but you pivot to the extraordinary, I'd say. I see those things and I appreciate them so much. Seriously, you hold this house together, but that is the maintenance of our life. I'm talking about celebrating the extraordinary. When I go above and beyond, I need a response that reminds me I'm your husband, not just your co-parent. Even if you're tired, I need to know the spark is still the priority.
That distinction, husband versus co-parent, is really sharp.
It has to be sharp. Otherwise, the marriage just slowly becomes a small business you run together.
Yeah.
Smith Family LLC. And your sex life becomes just another tedious chore on the whiteboard right after take out the recycling.
This entire framework is really powerful because it completely takes the ick factor out of asking for intimacy. It turns it into a high-level conversation about the actual structure and health of your relationship.
It elevates the conversation. It's no longer about, I want sex. It's about, I want the privileges of my rank.
The husband rank must have privileges that the brother rank does not. That is the gold standard summary right there.
And if it doesn't, if the husband rank and the brother rank have the exact same privileges and the exact same gratitude currency, then you really don't have a marriage. You have a roommate with a joint checking account.
Ouch. But undeniably true.
And here's a final thought to chew on as we wrap this up. Something the sources alluded to, but we really need to highlight for you to explore on your own. It's a concept called the time gap disconnect.
What is...
Often, the grand gesture and the actual gratitude are just way too far apart in time. Think about it. You book the Amalfi trip in March. The actual trip is in July. The partner says thanks in March when you reveal it, but the physical moment has passed by bedtime. Or maybe they wait until the trip is over in July to show deep gratitude, but your massive effort of planning was months ago.
So the psychological link gets completely broken. The brain just doesn't associate the reward with the effort anymore.
Exactly. We have to be highly conscious auditors of our gratitude currency. If we aren't careful, we default to brother-level habits simply because they are vastly easier. They are lower energy.
Yeah.
It is so much easier to write a nice card than to initiate vulnerable intimacy. It is easier to give a quick hug than to create a prolonged afterglow moment.
And that default path, taking the path of least resistance, is exactly what leads to the roommate phase. It leads to the slow, quiet death of the romantic spark.
It absolutely does. So the challenge for you, the listener, as you mull this over, is this. Are you treating your covenant of choice, your precious marriage, with the lazy complacency of a covenant of blood? Are you assuming they will simply always be there, so you just give them the standard package?
That is a haunting question. Are you treating your choice like a given?
Don't let your gratitude match the neighbor's gratitude. Make your gratitude match the vow.
Man, powerful stuff today. This has been a really intense deep dive into the hidden architecture of our relationships. We really hope this gives you the exact words you need to have that tough but absolutely necessary conversation with your partner.
It is uncomfortable, but it is so worth the effort.
Thanks for joining us as we explored this with you. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.